last reading I did was in Montreal, and the lighting was awful. And somebody passed out from the drink. It was all right. So hopefully nobody passes out today. I want to get a few thank yous in case I don't win. So I'd like to thank Arc Magazine. This book the pieces in this book first appeared in Arc Magazine before they appeared anywhere else. So I appreciate that. I'd like to thank my publisher, Beth Follett, who is the most courageous publisher in this country, and Rob and Sandy. It's the first time I've been a finalist for something where if somebody else wins, the smile on my face will be genuine. So, I would like to say that they're my two best friends in writing, and I thank them too. So, this is part of the Johnny Cash section. Some of the first music I remember hearing, I guess, would be field hollers, which was maybe a simple kind of the blues. And it was a spiritual kind of singing that went back and forth in the cotton fields. It was calling to each other. It was saying, I'm still here. It was music as a way of getting through, which I think is still an important part of what music is, for a good number of people anyway. There's all kinds of cotton fields, all kinds of disappointment. It's a way to just get through. I Am Bound for the Promised Land was, I believe, the first song I ever sung. At least it's the first one I have a memory of singing. I was in the back of a flatbed truck on the way to our second house in Dias. Sometimes my mother would sing, and sometimes she'd cry. And sometimes you couldn't tell which. Us kids would all be in the back, and we'd pull over to the side of the mud road at night in that government truck. There were heavy rains that spring, and we just had an old tarp on us, and our bodies were heavy. The weight of that tiredness, you know, crept over you like rising cotton. And I remember having this sense at that age that when I was singing, I knew what I was doing. Folks stopped what they were doing, and they listened. I was puny, though, not strong or smart like Jack, who was going to be a preacher. When I sang, folks looked at me like they would a talking dog. Admiration there, sure, but some pity too. We used to swim, Jack and I, in the creek, and we'd jump together in the cool water, and this is what I wanted to tell you. Every time I came back up to the surface, it was a surprise. Mornings I wake up now and all I want is coffee. Maybe I want some eggs too. On a wild occasion, I will have a biscuit or two. I lie in for a while, enjoying the fact that I will not be up soon, searching for last night's pockets, for pills, under the bed, for bottles. I listen to the sounds of the ice cracking in the pond, snow coming down off the road. I'm saying now that I rejoice. I reach for June, not to have her, but to hold her. There's a world of understanding of the difference. There's having a gun, and there's using it. There's the gospel, and there's living. When you find the truth, you don't put that down again. God help you if you do. You'll have the devil to pay. But the Lord loves a sinner, loves a soul in tears. When you can find it, truth sings. My mother could see for miles. She was always the first one to see the robin. She saw when you'd done something wrong and you needed to tell her about it. Even when you didn't think you really needed to tell her about it. Even when you thought it might be fine just to keep it to yourself for a little while. She knew better. It was best to come clean. Look at this life. All the shining moments, the wreckage. She told me she loved me. I did the same. I don't know how many children I have. Mortality, I guess. The concerns of mortality. How the night stretches out from this table forever. When I was young, no one spoke of love. It's a physical effort for me now to speak of anything else. If you know me, you will consider this for a moment and realize it's true. Look around you. All of this is passing. No wonder people start to drink at dusk. So this starts the Alden Nolan section, so this is in the voice of Alden now. When I was young, life in this country was a grim affair. Everything was black and white. News came secondhand. It was difficult to find what you really wanted at Freeman's or the Hudson Bay Company. The only official language was small, and no one really understood it, though they pretended to. Men could choose to go to work in trim gray suits, or they could fish, or cut wood. That was it. Women had few choices, other than to marry the men. But we had Don Messer and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Bière Froide, it wasn't so bad. You could smoke as many cigarettes as you wanted, and nobody had yet figured out that we were mortal. The search for happiness led them here, where my father eventually kicked my mother from the house for stepping out with younger men. She took us to live with my uncle and aunt, and we'd spend Sunday afternoons in the outhouse with Uncle Albert, the door open, my uncle taking pot shots with his .45 at the clothespins on the line, until my outraged mother would chase us both with a broom. She would sit up herself late into the moonless night with a .22 across her lap, occasionally rousing the whole house with a shot. Nobody knew what at. Stanley, Nova Scotia, 1945. We watched the end of the driveway as a flock of crows shadowed overhead, the tired grass burning in the sun, as Mrs. Edwards across the street pulled back her drapes and stood watching too. The heat was unbearable, softening the pavement, heating the rubber of the one tire of Jimmy Edwards' bicycle that still turned in the air, the other so badly mangled by the impact of the car fender that it looked unlikely to ever turn again. We watched as the car door slammed and the man ran back swearing. None of us knew then that Japan had surrendered. Mrs. Edwards' mouth open, her two white hands silently pushing the glass. We all come quite slowly to realize the things we are good at. It's an ongoing process of elimination. I once thought I'd be able to try my hand at the fiddle. If Don Messer could do it, then why not me? Apparently, there were many reasons. I picked up an old fiddle at a pawn shop and I hammered away at it for a while. Sawed, I suppose, would be more accurate. I thought that if I wasn't too bad, I thought that maybe with a few lessons, well, maybe I could do no harm in playing a few tunes for other people. Wiser heads prevailed. Mrs. Linkletter, who had been selected for the task of elevating my rough-hewn talent into something more presentable, watched from a safe distance in the corner of her parlor for a time, while the performing bear in the corduroy jacket lumbered about the room, elbowing away and disturbing the furniture. She kept one hand in the pocket of her crocheted sweater and one to her mouth. It was the sort of expression one might see in the countenance of someone witnessing a tragic automobile accident. Eventually, she reached out and forcibly removed the instrument from my hands. Give me that before you hurt someone with it. And then she set it down carefully on a little table near the center of the room. That amount of playing should serve well for a first lesson, she said softly, touching the fret of the instrument in a thoughtful manner. Some, she told me, are born to play the fiddle, and some to be of service to the community in other ways, such as leading a Boy Scout troop or joining the Rotary Club. She was quite delicate about it all and offered me a cup of tea before I left. But the way she touched that instrument with reverence. And I stand regarding my father's house, which is not there. It was modest by anyone's standards, but serviceable, gradually whittled away, first the second floor shut off after Grace and us kids left, because it was too hard to heat from the wood stove in the kitchen. My father's remaining ambitions died off, so too did the 2 goats and the sheep, eaten or sold. The machinery rusted lilac and rose overtook the lawn. Eventually, he was down to a cot in the kitchen, too tired to keep the other rooms open, nobody in them anyway. I remember eating pepper sandwiches as a boy, the bread blackened. Slap sandwiches. You'd slap the butter on and slap the bread together because there was nothing else. The way that some women know how to undo us, to make us tell them what we didn't know until they asked us. Children found my father's body. There was no one so alone as he. And so, almost lastly, this is the poem that was written first, and it describes the actual historical incident where Alden Nolan met Johnny Cash backstage in front of him. Alden Nolan met Johnny Cash in Fredericton. True story. And it is not documented exactly what was said, but both men, having been demonized, sainted, and given up for dead, saved, and hammered out, I imagine that what was said, it might have eaten up the darkness for a bit. What is recorded is that before anything much interesting could happen, the Prince of Wales entered, no kidding, and started to discuss beards. He was growing one, and Alden's was prodigious. The only recorded words were regarding beards. Charles: "My mother doesn't approve, I'm afraid." Alden: "Well, sir, what mum does." Sorry that I couldn't have been there, if it was only to stop Charles from elbowing his way into the room and preventing any interesting words, but then every poem is an apology for something. Thank you.